We are live talking crackers and cookies.
That's right. What's your favorite biscuit?
What's your favorite biscuit?
No comics today. Only bread-based products.
Yep, there's Wilson. Hello there, Wilson. And
Hello.
hardtack. Hardtack was something I only read about in books all the time. Like they had that in like the Lord of the Rings, didn't they? Hardtack
That,
was something like for explorers and military. It was like unleavened bread that you cooked on a hot stone or something, and it kept
uh,
for months.
right. So it's what we call biscuit.
Right. Hello there, Tit Goblin. Good evening. And how
Because
are you doing this tonight, Wilson?
it's what the Portuguese sailors took on their trips
Right,
around the world.
right. Hardtack.
I'm doing
How you,
okay. Just catching up on some last minute sketch cards. That's been my whole week.
ah. Tit Goblin says hardtack is a staple here. Fish and brews. Yeah, in that sailing town of yours. Probably all the sailors got used to eating hardtack on their voyages. So, but it's something I've never actually had. Like I said, I've only read it in books, and I've always kind of wanted to try to have some. Because you know what it was? It was they never made it sound good because it's like dry, crumbly cracker bread.
Yeah.
But sometimes it was the only thing they had, and they were so thankful for it.
Pretty much. I mean, I only know about it through various YouTube videos and Survivor stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what they used to use. I used to go camping a lot as a kid.
Mhm.
Family was in the Boy Scouts and stuff like that. But that stuff we never. Yeah, I didn't learn about that until I was an adult.
Yeah. I remember, like, I think they had something like it in Lord of the Rings. I don't remember if they called it
They had
hardtack
it.
or not.
They had a bread in Lord
Right.
of the Rings, something bread, linden bread or something like that. And it was like one bite is supposed to
Oh
fill you
yeah.
for a day or something like that. And
Right.
so they made a joke out of it that the hobbits ate like four of them already, kind of a thing that it was a magical bread for them
Right.
type of thing. So, but I would guess the closest real or true life thing would be something like that, considering that the author for Lord of the Rings did serve in the military.
Right. He knew
So,
what hardtack was, I'm sure.
oh yeah,
But I can't remember what book I learned the name of it from. It was some book or not. Oh, it could have been. I used to read. What was the guy's name? Kenneth Roberts. He wrote historical fiction, um, mostly about the American Revolutionary times. He wrote. What was his famous one about Roberts? He wrote a couple about Benedict Arnold before he turned traitor. Rabble in Arms, that was his one about the American Revolution and starred Benedict Arnold.
okay, those I never read.
And there was Northwest Passage. No, that wasn't his. There was Rogers Rangers. That was Rogers Rangers were like they were like they're called like the father of the U.S. Marines. They were like a ranger squad, and by rangers they were guys who like went out in the woods.
Right.
And they were guerrilla fighters. And I think that they may have started in the French and Indian War and then continued into the Revolution. And that was the one he wrote. I can't remember the name of that one, but that one got turned into a movie in the 50s too. That was famous. That he used to be like a best-selling author in the 50s and 40s, I think. And then I guess he died. I don't even know. But he wrote some good books. I think Hardtack was in those. That's also where that book I learned about hot buttered rum too.
That I don't know about.
Because what it was in those days, especially if you were one of Rogers Rangers and it's not like us where everybody's fat. because we have, you know, high caloric food all around us. They had low caloric food, and they had like no fat in their diet. So there were a lot of them were always kind of like on the brink of starvation. 'Cause, so one of their drinks to get fat into themselves was hot buttered rum. They would literally heat up rum and then put a stick of butter on top, and the stick of butter would melt on the top of the rum, and then you drink it. And because they needed fat, so they
Right.
drink butter. Hot Tit Goblin says hot buttered rum is also a staple here. Wow.
Okay.
After this weekend, it might be a
Mhm.
staple here. I mean, give it a try.
Sounds
It's
good to rum.
It's gotten cold and it's raining. It's raining and wet. I'm
Oh
actually
yeah.
quite surprised how well heated my apartment is today in the last few days.
Uh,
So I'm knocking on wood because of that. It also upsets me on so many days of how cold I've been, where it's like, gee, if it could have been like this, why wasn't it?
An evening 62 Lefty Blues. Hot buttered rum. Yeah, I remember in those books, it was always like a big deal when they got something with fat in it. They were like if they happened to kill a bear, that was like, ooh, bear fat was like the greatest thing ever because that would keep you alive for a long time. Let's see, what was that Rogers Rangers book he wrote? I can't. Hey, look, our 17% chance is now 100% as Chris Geruso shows up.
All right.
Good evening, Chris. How are you
Welcome.
doing tonight?
Good to
I'm
see
good.
you,
How are
Chris.
you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Good,
All
good.
right.
Working on some
Seven.
more official handbook commissions.
Done with that. Well,
Done with
not
that
totally.
for now, or
Not done. I thought I
yeah,
was done
for now. You got another one because you're doing a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
You're doing every issue cover.
No,
Still have some-
17%. That's like 6-1 odds. We should have
I
run
know.
we
Should have bet.
should have bet. Will Chris Geruso appear in the Cavern of Chaos? Play 6-1.
Let me show you what I finished reading this week. Was the Giant Sigil Omnibus, which, as you remember, I started reading, I think, 2 shows ago. So 2 weeks ago, I had, guess it took me 2 weeks to read it. I finished it last week, 2 weekends. These cross-gen books read pretty quickly. And there's 42 issues of Sigil in here, plus another 3 or 4 issues of odds and ends. But I think there was, let's see, who was doing this? I think the stuff I read this week was mostly Chuck Dixon. He wrote issues 21 through 42. You guys read much Chuck Dixon stuff?
I know I read his Batman stuff. I know I read tons of his stuff over the years.
I usually
he jumps
find
around to different companies, so
I usually find his stuff pretty well ordered and tightly structured.
yes.
In terms of it always it's not, it always kind of makes sense storytelling wise, and he's not. I never found him like an A level writer, but he's a good solid B level writer. And if you read a Chuck Dixon story, Evening Comic Crack, it's always going to be solid, if not spectacular.
Yes.
And that's what this was too. I think he brought a little more because, like, this is the one. This is the Sigil. This is the one of the cross gens I never read more than 5 or 6 issues of. It was never one I collected regularly. And if I had a criticism of it, especially like who wrote I think Barbara Kessel started out. He did Way of the Rat and the Pirate Chick one for Cross Gen too. Did he do the El Cazador? I don't remember him writing El Cazador.
He did.
He wrote
I
that.
do. I do have El Cazador.
Remember the Steve McNiven art?
Not Steve McNiven.
Who was it?
Steve Epting.
Steve Epting. There was Steve McNiven. I think was Meridian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steve Epting. Some really nice art. A solid story once again.
Yeah,
I think
have an Elseworlds they did called Conjurers. Pretty good story. I saw it in the cheap bins. And probably read a few of his Punisher stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's one of these writers who I never really seeked out his work, but I would, if I happened to be reading something he was on, I'd be okay. Chuck Diskin has a YouTube channel and answers questions every Wednesday. Oh, okay. That's cool. And like Barbara Kessel wrote the first 11 issues. Then Mark Waid took over till issue 19. Barbara Kessel for one more issue. And then Chuck Dixon finished up the back half from 21 to 42. And the pencilers were Ben Lai, L-A-I. I don't remember him from anywhere else. Did 1 through 5. Steve McNiven did an issue. Kevin Sharp did 3 issues. I remember him. Scott Eaton did a bunch of issues. I think he did most, or he did a lot of, well, he and Dale Eaglesham did a lot of the Chuck Dixon stuff. Then Ron Wagner did an issue. Andy Smith did a couple issues. Eduardo Barreto did an issue. Paul Pelletier did an issue. The quality is all pretty good when it comes to the art. CrossGen had their art quality down.
Do you remember when DC tried to do a new universe? They just did one shots called Tangent Comics.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Well, I have the one that he did, Secret Six.
And Left 62 Lefty Blues has Alien Legion, Airboy, and a big run on the Punisher. Yeah, he's been around and writing forever.
Yeah, Airboy is probably what got him noticed.
Yeah, I remember I got Airboy. I still have some issues over there.
I remember I once saw an interview. He was asked about how he got the job for Savage Sword of Conan when he became the regular writer, and he was asked to summarize Conan in one word, and he said murder.
But I think I enjoyed it thoroughly reading this, and it amazes me how much nostalgia I have for CrossGen. Because I was buying quite a few cross-gen comics at the time, and it was just kind of this weird experiment in meta storytelling to a small extent, but really not to a large extent. And I think this is the problem I had with it when I read a few issues at the beginning. And it's not like I said, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I read all 42 issues, but the problem I had with especially the what's his name written? I forgot his name. I just said Chuck Dixon written issues was the story has a very large the place it takes place in has a very large scope, but the stories end up being really small because the setup is takes place in the Earth, someplace like Earth, their future. Out in space, and there's a bunch of humans who have, a bunch of planets. So, like the Federation of Planets. And they're taking on, I guess, the Klingons, who are these lizards. So there's this active war going on that's been going on for a while. And like in the very beginning, Samadal Ray, Sam, he's the lead character. He's like a retired military guy. And in case anybody doesn't know the CrossGen, when CrossGen first started out, I think they had 5 books. They had Sigil, Mystic. So I can't remember the ones I read. Meridian, Scion. and another one that I read that's right up there that I can't remember. I think they're fine, but
You say Sojin?
So no, that was a later one.
That was a later
But
one?
the basically what CrossGen was trying to do was they said they were looking for genres that were underserved, and they were going to tell stories in those genres. No, the Path was a later on one too. That was later on. Was the other one with the first ones all had like 40 issues. That's how you know they were the first ones. If it didn't go to 40 issues, it wasn't one of the first ones. But so like Meridian was sort of a fantasy story aimed at women. Scion was sort of a fantasy romance story aimed at men and women. This was more of the military story aimed at men. The first was the other one. The first was these Pantheon of Gods stories. And Mystic was sort of this magic story aimed at, I guess it was aimed at women because it was a young girl. So it was the first was the fifth one, which that's another one that I haven't read. So in those five, except in the first, it was different. One person they took place in different genres, different worlds, and some mysterious character came down and gave one or sometimes two characters in each story a sigil that gave them superpowers. So like Scion was about, like, it was this fantasy story sort of along the lines of King Arthur sort of stuff, but with magic in it. And the Scion is the name of the next person in line for the throne, sort of like a prince. And so it was the story of the prince in this world he lived in, and him and his rivals. And so this one takes place in that military world where these two, the lizards and the humans are fighting each other in this interplanetary war. So there's this big sort of scope to it. And even in the beginning, there were one of the characters, one of the villains in it was this human who was sort of like Quark in the Ferengis. His planet did all this business, so he had to keep, even though he was human, had to keep good with the humans and the lizards. But he was playing both sides against each other, and he was allying with the lizards, and so there's all sorts of that big stuff going on. But most of the stories were starred like five characters. Samadal Ray, and he's got a lizard sort of rival guy who's a military leader. So the stories, and despite this big scope, the stories ended up being kind of small in a way that I found a little disappointing, but still good. Like I said, I still enjoyed reading them. When Chuck Dixon came on, he kind of cleaned up that structure. The stories didn't get much bigger, but got a little bigger to kind of fill the world. So that was kind of interesting. And then it ended with one of my favorite of the cross-gen comics, and one of my favorite comics of all time, that's how much I like it, is the series Negation, which was ended up in a series. All five series plus the other ones we're supposed to end with. Let me show you this: Negation War. This was the 6-issue series that was wrapping up all of cross-gen, the sigil stuff, because there was also problems with the writers, because as with every sort of big idea, I always say, whenever a company like Marvel or DC, especially DC, because they're the one who've done it, decides to do a reboot, it never works out, because eventually, if there's not a continuity cop, the writers are going to rebel against having to have these handcuffs on them to write in whatever the reboot is. It happens to every reboot, because if you've got the power to decide there's going to be a reboot at DC Comics, you don't want to be a continuity cop. So, and that was kind of the same at CrossGen. Like when they came out with new series like The Path and Ruse, Mark Waid didn't want anything to do with that cross-gen story with the sigil, and he kind of really downplayed it in Ruse. So by the time Negation War finally rolled around, like 4 years later, like I talked to Tony Bedard, who's the writer on Negation War once, and he was telling me the ending of the story and how meta it was because, what was the name? Mark Alessi? That was the guy who funded, he was a comic book fan who made his money in software, died of a sudden heart attack 10 years ago or so too, and then started CrossGen. But the villain in Negation War was this guy called Charon, and they really had Tony Bedard said this, they really had sort of a meta thing going where Charon was Mark Alessi. So they made the boss the villain in their piece. That's how much they were annoyed with him, dipping his toe in the creative. And that's just the way it is because bosses think they're creative, but they're really not. But it worked. Most of CrossGen worked for me anyway. But the end of this had some of the beginning of it, because like I said, this series, it actually ended at 42 issues. So this didn't get cut off prematurely. All their the 5 series missed it. We're all supposed to end at this time and culminate in Negation War. So, but of course, only 2 out of the 6 issues came out, and then CrossGen went out of business, which is an ultimate disappointment to me because I loved this. The series Negation, I think, ran 27 issues, and then it ran into this. So I was happy to finally read the lead-up stuff because it's the Negation War is all one big series. So the last 3 issues of Sigil were the lead-up to Negation War, and I never read those. So I was happy to read those. I was like, oh, cool. And then, of course, I pulled these 2 issues out to read and read them. And then, as I always do, I wish Marvel would finish this one day. But then I printed this out. I had this a while ago. Issue 3 of Negation War was actually drawn. Never lettered, never scripted, but it's actually drawn. And I actually tracked it down on the internet. I'd seen it before, but I tracked down somebody gathered all the pages in one spot. So I downloaded them all, but they're all kind of low res. So I upscaled them in my upscaling program, and then I made a PDF out of them just for the heck of it. But then I found, I think this is from Tony Bedard. This is 6 pages of him telling you how Negation War was supposed to have ended. So it's I think all of issue 3 was written. So that most of this is issue 3. Then they just give you the plot of issue 4, 5, and 6, just so you can see how it. But it was kind of, I pulled this out and read it too. But it got me. It got me a thought into my head because, like I said, this guy right here, Samad Al-Ray. He was the military guy, very powerful with the sigil, and all along you got the idea that he was supposed to lead the forces against the negation. But he actually died at the end of issue 3 of Negation War. But the issue 3 of Negation War never came out. So the question I have to ponder is, did a character really die if the comic book he was supposed to die in never came out? Because he's still he's still alive all through here, and there's no comic that says he died because they only got 2 out.
It's a good question. It comes down to do you add Do you add to the canon of a movie when they cut a scene?
Ah, yeah.
You know, was that scene cut for time, or was it cut for content?
Good question.
Yeah.
But this is the ultimate series I'd like to see finished. And Marvel could do it, of course. But
Right.
will they ever be motivated to? Because it's drawn by Paul Pelletier, who works for Marvel. And it's written by Tony Bedard, who works for Marvel.
Right.
So maybe if they ever get around to putting out a negation omnibus, because I think they got a sigil on, they got a Mystic omnibus out now, which is another this year, and they're going to put out I think a Sojourn omnibus, probably because that's Greg Land artwork.
There any anniversaries coming up for CrossGen?
I think this year is the anniversary of it ending. I think it may have started in 2000 and ended in 2004. Who knows?
They're already
They just
doing some of the omnibuses. Maybe that's on there. Is Corey doing the omnibuses?
I don't think Corey does omnibuses. I think he only does the Marvel Masterworks. I don't know. Let's see.
Okay.
I think what's his name? Jeff Youngquist. I think he was still in charge last I knew. Let's see some names. Oh, Jen Grunwald is the collection editor on this one.
Okay.
Jeff Youngquist is still the VP Production and Special Projects. So he's still there. David Gabriel is still the SVP Print Sales and Marketing. He's the guy who doesn't like Chris Giarruso's work.
Well,
actually, I shouldn't say that.
Can't say that anymore.
What was that?
Can't say that anymore. He's letting me do all these variant covers. So
that's true. That is true. And I shouldn't say he didn't like his work. He just didn't see the sales there for a Chris Giarruso comic. I don't want to put words into his mouth. But I got to say that I really enjoyed reading that sigil. I can't wait when Mystic comes down in price, Mystic comes down in price. I'm going to get that one too. What comics do you guys have nostalgia for that aren't from your childhood?
Well, is 18 years old considered childhood?
Maybe not.
I have a nostalgia for Yusaki Ojimbo because I never really collected them. I would get an issue here or there, but I never really. I probably bought more of those books or crossover books with Yusaki in it than the actual regular series. And I probably bought more of those books this year than any other year.
And it brings you right back to that time. And Chris is, of course, the Savage Dragon, that the archive, the artist edition, the Vault edition, they call them over there. Okay. And that just came out, didn't it?
Yeah, it's so weird to look at this stuff.
Now, did he send you a copy or did you buy that one?
No, I bought this.
Ooh.
It's weird to look at this stuff and it takes you back, even though the book still is never stopped being published.
Right.
But it's still it looks and feels so much different. It's changed so much.
It brings you back to early 90s Eric Larson, Savage Dragon.
Yeah. Nostalgia.
How about you, Paolo? You have nostalgia from a book that's not from your childhood?
Jeff Johns's JSA.
Okay.
It was pretty self-contained inside the DC universe, and the overall quality was very good, and the way the characters were handled, I loved that as well.
Yeah.
I suppose the reason I like Black Adam has nothing to do with the fact that he was the original Captain Marvel's villain. It's all about the personality he had in that JSA run.
Yep. And it's amazing to me how nostalgia works too, because there's plenty of stuff that I like from certain ages of time that don't give me nostalgia. Like, what was I just thinking of before? Jason Lutz, Jar of Fools is one of his. I think that's the first one I read by him. Berlin is his other one. Like that stuff I just think is good, but it doesn't give me a feeling of nostalgia when I look at it, even though it's, from around the same age as CrossGen or whatever. So I wonder what it is that makes that nostalgia, besides being from our childhood. I mean, that one's easy to explain. It reminds us of our childhood.
Well, the JSA was kind of designed to appeal to nostalgia, even though I didn't have it, because I had never read the old JSA stories from the 70s, and especially not from the 40s. So the concept of nostalgia is appealing, even if you don't have nostalgia for the original product, because it's designed that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've had for comics, or I think is more of a. I've been getting hit with nostalgia from the middle '90s lately, where things are popping up, and it's like, oh, that was from this time period. Oh, I remember that, and it's like not childhood. I'm already graduating college, and there's still kind of a, oh, these are, the Toy Biz action figures that were out at KB. I miss KB. I don't, it's just one of those things. I think I miss KB toys more than Toys R Us, kind of a thing. So, and I think it's a nostalgia for the time period itself.
I think it's all that. Now I'm thinking about your Urusagi Yojimbo and my sigil right here. It might also be for things we missed out on, which we were around, we were near.
Yes.
It's like I was reading other cross-gen books, but not sigil. So in reading this one, I'm kind of brought right back to that time, reminded of comics I enjoy, but they weren't the comics I enjoyed. So it's a weird, like the Usagi Yojimbo for you reminds you of Usagi Yojimbo being around that sort of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle universe, but you really didn't read a lot of it. But now it's like going back to that Teenage Mutant Ninja universe, but a little off center from it.
Yeah, and I think it also it gives me, for that particular thing, is I was getting a lot of Dark Horse stuff, but that wasn't one of them.
Right.
So where I would run into in the Dark Horse stuff, it might be the Dark Horse Presents. There may have been a story there, but I was more interested in the Aliens versus Predator story from that time period or stuff like that. Or Dark Horse was doing Godzilla and things like that, where it was like, those are the books I was getting. So I already had Dark Horse in my mindset, and I was picking up books on a regular basis. But that was just one of the books that I wasn't. And I think it's the same thing with Hellboy, that I would get a bunch of books and then kind of stop, get a bunch of books. So I never really had I can't even say if Hellboy had a full run, because it would pop up. It would have miniseries and stuff like that, as far as I can recall. And then you had series like when Dark Horse was doing their $1 superhero lines that didn't go that very far. X was one of the titles. I forget the line itself, if the line had its own branding. I want to say there was like a scale, might have been the logo, but it was still Dark Horse.
I guess there can be like childhood nostalgia is for stuff you had. You love the stuff you had as a child. And maybe, young adult nostalgia is more for the things you missed out on.
Yeah, or things
that were around, but you didn't quite.
Like I have,
and they remind you of all the stuff you
like American Flag.
Yeah.
Or I have a nostalgia for ElfQuest, but I've only ever read, I think, a handful of the graphic novels. But whenever I see something with those creators, with opinions, it's like, oh, yeah, that was something cool. What do I have from that? And it's like, no, I only have maybe 2 or 3 trade paperbacks, a
Mhm.
couple of the graphic novels. Even if I still have them, I don't really know if I even have them.
Who
Or
knows
it's just
what's in those boxes in the closets?
right. So with that, it's like, I remember picking them off the shelves and I'm going through them, but I may not have bought them. That's
Yeah,
the other thing too, because I remember plenty of times, because that's one of those series that every few years is repackaged,
right.
and you look at it and go, should I get it this time or this way? But the nostalgia for ElfQuest really is those first graphic novels and the way they were printed and the way they look, which I don't think looks the same after so many years.
Yeah. See, Friar Tuck says CrossGen had really cool and innovative website when they were a company. Yeah, and sort of animated comic strips. Yeah, they were pushing everything they could.
Yeah.
Sounds corny now, but it was pretty cool in the early 2000s. Good stories as well. Should be able to put a run together in dollar bins now, I would imagine. And worth. I do. First of all, I got no dollar bins near me. Not that I go around to many comic shops. I don't have a lot of comic shops near me, but that all depends on what you count as near me. But cross-gen, like a complete set of any cross-gen book, used to be fairly cheap on eBay. They're not as cheap as they used to be. Because I always meant to, like, it would probably to put together, 15 years ago, to put together 1 to 42 of Sigil, it would probably cost $40 shipped. Now it's more like $80 shipped, which is why I spent $70 on this. But I'm sure, I don't know if cross-gen might be one of those things that is you can't find in bins because I never see any. And the entire time I've been on YouTube, I've never seen anybody pull cross-gen runs out of dollar bins. Could just be because they're ignoring them. Could just be because comic shops don't even bother to put them in dollar bins anymore. They're just in storage somewhere. So I imagine you could, if you find them somewhere. You can get up into Connecticut or perhaps Poughkeepsie area. Should be able to find some flea markets. Yeah, see, that's what I say. It all depends on what you consider near me, because most people, my comic shop is about 20-25 minutes away. I consider that near me. I think there's another one about that distance away, and I'm in New York City twice a week. But I don't consider New York City near me a lot because it takes so much time to travel into and out of and go someplace in. Technically, Midtown Comics would be near me when I'm in New York City because I come into 34th Street and it's just up on 40th. So it's only 6 blocks away. But still, I'm always walking downtown. And I'm sure Midtown Comics in their warehouse has tons of cross-gen books because they used to practically distribute for cross-gen. And I know people who, if it's an hour's drive to a comic shop, they consider that near them. And I assume, like I said, Poughkeepsie is within an hour's drive from me. Connecticut is within an hour's drive from me. So I assume that there's probably a bunch of comic shops within an hour's drive from me. I just never go to them. Because I buy all my comics new.
Something that Wilson said about the way he related to ElfQuest, it's kind of funny because I have a similar feeling when it comes to Ron Randall's Tracker. I still go every week. Ron Randall posts a new story page for the comics. He now puts out in with crowdfunding. But I remember a few years ago I bought the Dark Horse Omnibus in that small Dark Horse format that they have. And I remember going through previews and saying, "No, what's this? Tracker. This cover looks interesting. I'm probably going to buy this." I had no idea what it was. I didn't know
Right.
it came out in Dark Horse Presents all the way back then. So
I bought it
started
back then, but haven't seen it much since.
So I start reading it. Oh, this looks familiar. Ron Rand. Oh, this is the guy that did Barren Earth. And the Barren Earth is like something that nobody likes to see even notices,
Isn't that
because it
Paul
was
Chadwick, Barren Earth?
no, it was Gary. It was written by Gary Conan and drawn by Ron Randall.
What was the one that Paul Chadwick did?
I have no idea.
It's the title is something like Barren Earth.
Yeah, because the Barren Earth was a backup strip. It started in Arion, Lord of the Atlantis, and it moved to Warlord after Arion was canceled.
There's one that Paul Chadwick did. Yeah, I think I read those Barren Earth. There's something Paul Chadwick did that was kind of a Pellucidar-like thing. It was only one mini, I don't know, 10 issue, and it was like, the title was something like Barren. I'm getting confused with it. But The Earth Below, that was it. The Earth Below. Okay.
No, that came out in the 90s. That came out in the 90s, I think.
Yeah. That's what I'm confusing it with.
Yeah. Because the Barren Earth was an odd choice to get picked up in another country, but that thing was used to fill up the New Teen Titans, the Brazilian edition of the New Teen Titans back then, because it was just a bunch of short. It was an episodic short story, so it kept going, and they would run 2 or 3, whatever they needed to fill up that issue of New Teen Titans. And I found them quite appealing, but the thing is something that nobody remembers, and so but Ron Randall's art in particular got stuck in my head.
That's
and when I bought Tracker,
I think I first saw him in the Barren Earth. That must be the first place I saw Ron Randall art. But yeah, I used to like Trekker. I bought, I think I had a couple of individual series I bought, as well as it was in Dark Horse Presents, but it was never quite as good as I wanted it to be. It was always a solid B, but it never and it was the writing never quite rose above that B level writing or kind of stuff. But the art was always nice, and I always enjoyed it. But I always kind of you ever read a comic book regularly and just kind of always want it to be a little bit better, but it never is?
The 90s Nick Fury series.
So Tracker, by the way, Ron has done a 128-page graphic novel for it.
Right. And by the way, it's Trekker for anyone out there with an E, like in
Trekker.
Star Trek, Trekker. She's on a trek.
Oh,
Not
okay.
Tracker.
She's tracking something, so she's on a trek. Okay.
You probably can't tell the difference when we say it, just like Star Trek and Star Trek, some people say. But it's actually Trekker for anyone listening it up with an E. 2 E's.
So he funded it on Kickstarter, and 128-page graphic novel. And you can still order it from Kickstarter. Okay. Even though it has funded. And so it's like, I wasn't even... You said the name, it sounded familiar, and I looked up the covers, and like, okay, I remember seeing them on the stands. I don't believe I ever bought an issue. But the artwork looks pretty good.
And Friar Tuck says, I bet if you ask the manager at Midtown, they may dig out the cross-gens for you. Yeah. But at this point, there probably won't be $1. That'd be the only.
No, last time I was at the warehouse, I didn't see anything that would have been $1. So those are, I think their dollar bins are now like $5 or so.
Trekker.
If you go to the website's archives, you have all of his comics there. And everything. So it's separated by storyline. The last
Chris dropped out and then came back.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
anyway,
the one that says the train to Avalon Bay, which is he has here as book 12. So it's a 48-page story. That was a one-shot that came out through Image in the 90s. That was the last one that was published as a regular comic publication, and everything since Rites of Passage has been kickstarted, and it goes back to 2014.
Let me check my database to see what.
So every once in a while, there's a new graphic novel.
Let's see. TUTR Trekker. I only have one. Oh, I only have one series of Trekker, 1 through 6. So I must have been reading a lot of it in Dark Horse Presents, and then it had his own 6-issue series, and then I never got anything else. I don't know how much Trekker came out after that, but I hadn't been buying it. Which reminds me, I just gave away to one of my students this week my Aftershock series, Rough Riders. I was cleaning out some. I'm like, Rough Riders. I didn't even have the first issue. I had 2 through 7. I'm like, may as well give this away to one of my students because I'm never going to read Rough Riders again. Get the room. Oh, and I was thinking of Paulo when I saw a review of and noticed. Who is it? Paper Cuts is putting out yet another Asterix series. They're putting out the collector's edition Asterix, which are oversized, I think, compared to the stuff they've been putting out. So it may be the same, because that's like the European graphic album size, right? The magazine size.
Yeah.
So it's hardcover. I think they said it was 78 pages for volume 1 and $20. Which isn't too bad, but I was like, you know what? Paulo told me I should start with volume. What volume was it when you said it got good?
No. The thing about Asterix, you can read them in any order you want.
But I think I remember you saying it got really good with issues like volumes like 3 or 4 or something.
Yeah, around that. The first one is the first story is not very good.
I read that one digitally, I think, recently.
Yeah, the thing is, let me check. So Asterix Collector Edition. This is just okay. So these are going to be volume 1. This is the first one. So
yeah, the only complaint the editor had was about the back matter, which he enjoyed, but he didn't like the translation of. He thought it was kind of he said it read to him like they rushed the translation out. And there was some unexplained references in there. Like there was one reference to some kind of bread that every French person would get because it's a type of French bread. But if you're an American, and this is in the back map, if you're an American, you have no idea what that word means. And there was other stuff in there too. Like he said, random use, like use the English spelling of things like color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing about it. Asterix, many of the jokes are very, very specific, even time specific. Because, for example, when they visit other cities in Roman Gaul, they're the Roman equivalents of modern French cities. And artist Uderzo usually gave the Roman consul of that town was actually the face of the then current mayor of that town. So it's something that most people won't notice. So you get the bread references, there are chestnut references. Sometimes you get some pop culture references, like a
lot of pop culture references from a certain time period, and then from a certain area. So if you're not aware of what is popular in that area in that time period, you're not going to get the reference. One of the ones that I lettered had to do with spies, and so they drew the spy as Sean Connery when he was James Bond. That's the way they drew that particular spy. Now, if you're not aware of the whole Bond lore, you're not going to get that guy is drawn to look like Sean Connery when he played James Bond.
No, he was drawn like Sean Connery when he played Zardoz.
Yeah. You know what? Yes, you are correct.
Although he is called in the story 006, even in the French edition. Because all the names are supposed to end in X. It was actually a common ending for names in Gaul, but not for everyone. But the joke in the comic is that all of the Gauls are called X. Sometimes you'll find some differences in script, and sometimes the main characters understand the people because it's supposed to represent a foreign language, like. They have some sort of Greek characters when Greek letters in the speech bubbles when a Greek character shows up, but they understand the Greek speaking perfectly. Now, when you have Germans, they have Gothic font, and they don't understand the Goths, so they need a translator. When they have Egyptians, they use Egyptian hieroglyphs. But because it's all supposed to be a joke, some hieroglyphs will be of modern things. Like there's one album where they have to find Asterix's sidekick Obelix falls in love with a girl from the village, but she's engaged to be married, but her boyfriend is a Gaul volunteer in the Roman army, and he disappears. So Asterix and Obelix go look for him, and in order to do that, they have to become legionnaires themselves. So there are volunteers from all over the place. The joke is that it's the French Foreign Legion. And there's the Egyptian guy. His name is Tennis Court. And so when he says his name, the hieroglyph is indeed a tennis court.
Yeah, and I know there was some controversy with the paper cuts editions when they made new translations for North America and didn't just use the UK translations that have been around forever. And all the fans who were, all the North American fans who were already fans and knew the UK translations were like, what are you doing to us? I was like, oh, interesting little, controversies. Well, let's see. At the comic shop this week, I got 7 comics. Did you make it to the comic shop, Wilson?
I did not. I was hoping to make it out today, but I've just been trying to catch up with these cards. All this week has been nothing but sketch cards. And, the weather kind of like, I don't want to go out in that. Because it's rainy, it's cold, and foggy. And it's like, I don't want to go out there. So it made it easy for me to go, well, if I'm done by X amount of time, then I'll run out there and attempt it. But when I saw the time, it's like, I'm not making it out there and making it back. So it's like, but I should have a good amount of books coming in next week because I got the email that said, you made payment to Midtown, and it was a large number, so it was like, there's probably at least there might be 5 books there waiting for me. So
you must have gotten some stuff.
So some stuff must have come in this week.
Well, you'll
or next week.
You'd like the weird basic plot of this issue, Power Fantasy. And this is the one, let me show you a little of the artwork, that is sort of a continuation of Kieran Gillen's ideas from the X-Men he just did, where it's about what if there were, this world where there were these Omega level mutants / superheroes who were like atom bombs. If they were to fight, millions of people would die. What would it take for them not to fight? And that's kind of what this is. This is about these superpowered people not fighting. And this particular issue, there's this, we find out what this one woman's power is. She's this woman right here. She's Japanese. And she's an artist. And if she becomes upset and unhappy, her subconscious mind makes Godzilla come out of the ocean and destroy the city. Not literally Godzilla, but they're hinting it's a it's a kaiju. It's a Godzilla-like creature. So there's the lead in the story is this guy right here. And he's another like Omega powered guy with like mental, he's kind of like Professor X. Except his powers really aren't physical. So he's like, he can be physically in danger. So he's the plotter and the planner. And as he says, he doesn't really have much of a chance to be a good man because he's too busy being ethical. And he's the one trying to keep. So he has to come. She's having the artist woman there is having an opening of her artwork. She's been working up to this. And the problem is if she gets upset about his opening, which almost happens a couple of times, Godzilla is going to rise out of the ocean. And it ain't easy to take out Godzilla. So he shows, and then there's stuff like he shows up and there's this giant mech robot waiting for him because, the humans, a lot of the governments want to kill him because he's this Omega powered mutant superhero. So he's like, he actually he can do stuff like freeze everyone around him so no one else knows what's going on somehow. But the giant robot guy is shielded from his power. And it was a great, he has to like stop this giant robot guy from killing him. And he wants to do it as ethically as he can. And so he's like, oh, I know you gotta be one of America's best and brightest soldiers. And he's like, and I know since they sent you out on this mission, they must have your family in a bunker to protect them from me being able to get into their minds. But I've got to tell you that I know who America's 6 best soldiers are. And I've already gotten to their families and put a post-hypnotic suggestion into their minds where if I don't, it's a dead man's, if I don't, if they don't hear from me every day and know I'm alive, they're going to kill themselves by chewing at their own wrists. And he's like, I know you're probably a good man in there. I know you're ordered to kill me. And you're probably a better man than me. So don't take that chance. Go back and don't kill me, and it'll save your wife and child. And he's like, that's when he gave the line, I don't have time to be a good man. I'm too busy trying to be ethical. So that's how he defeated the robot, the guy in the mech suit who was there to kill him. Was he just explained to him that his family was going to die if he killed him. So that's what this book is about. And then he goes to he goes to the art show, and he's trying to keep this woman calm. And there's a famous, and she just wants to hear from this famous art critic. And this famous art critic does not have, it turns, the artist got upset because it turned out that the famous art critic gave her a really good review. But the review came out slightly before the show. So now she's upset that this review isn't real. So Godzilla starts raising up out of the sea. So now this guy's trying to, our lead is trying to calm her down. And the art critic gives a good speech about how it's pretty good stuff, but it's all about how you're going to destroy us if you're not careful. So, though it's interesting, and she's satisfied with what the art critic has to say. Later on, we find out it was the guy using his mental powers on the art critic to say just the right thing. So it was just a really interesting issue with him, trying to keep his friend and this woman and this artist calm so the city doesn't get destroyed. And it's not even her fault. It's her subconscious. So I've been really, this is issue 4 of this series by Kieran Gillen and, I'm not going to be able to say this name again. Wingard, Casper Wijngaard. Paolo told me how to say it last time, and I still don't remember.
Weingard.
Weingard?
Yeah.
Weingard. Okay, that one's not too bad. But yeah, a good issue. And who colored this? Did Casper color it, or was there some nice coloring too? Oh, he colored it too, Casper Weingard. Clayton Cowles, letterer. Ryan Hughes, designer. But good issue. And it takes place in, the beginning is, first they show you the giant monster that destroyed Tokyo back in the early 80s when she was young. Or tried to destroy Tokyo. He may have stopped it then. So I'm really enjoying this book. I hope it goes on for a while. Because I had a couple of books that ended. Like another weird book, where is it? The Pedestrian. But by the way, I love the slogan, justice always has the right of way. But this is the sometimes you see this in indie books, and I'm just like, I hope so. They're like, the pedestrian will return. Like, I hope so. Because I enjoyed this weird book. It was mostly slice of life, but then weird, superpowered stuff showed in it. With then the pedestrian who really didn't talk, and where's the? I have no idea who these. There's the pedestrian. Oh, there he is there, saving that kid in multicolors, who just walks around town in that outfit helping people. And then there's these weird guys with the don't walk signs on their face. There they are. They're like the villains of the piece. And a lot of them were just like down on your luck guys who this main villain showed up for. Like, hey, want to turn your life around? Here's how you're going to do it. You're going to follow me. So they do. And then there's these 2 kids who are being babysit by this woman. She's one of our lead characters. And another one of the characters who shows up mysteriously are the guards, who are crossing guards. Here are the crossing guards. They show up to battle the pedestrian. And these are like 2 little kids who show up with a woman's babysitting. And you're like, here, take these signs. And it turns out these signs are shields. And when they hold them up, they're like people with the hands on their faces. Like, it's got a left turn. They turn left and crash into the guy next door. So there's all sorts of weird, unexplained stuff happening. And then there's this poor guy. I thought this was going to be my answer. The answer, my way out. They promised. I'm still in the gutter. Nothing left. This is one of the guys who they recruited and was like, yeah, everything's going to be great. Join us. And now he's just left in the alley, lying on the floor, beat up. But it wrapped up in a mysterious way, and if there's more issues of The Pedestrian, that'll be good. But it's an indie comic that I'm not sure how many copies of it sold. So, as often happens when some random indie comic says we'll be back, they're often never back. But I hope it is. We'll be back. Hope so. What's your favorite weird indie comic you wish was back?
That's what I was trying to think about. Is there one that had a "will be back" and it never came back? But I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Yeah, because they leave your mind. You've only got 4 issues of
Yeah,
it.
once it's gone, it's gone. And
Yeah.
it's if it wasn't like spectacular, that was like it was interesting, and then it was
Right.
gone.
That's usually what
I don't
happens.
think I've had one.
Like I said, I know I've read that plenty of times before, but I cannot for the life of me remember any of them now because they were around for a few issues and time passes. And they were fun and interesting, and
Or they would come back, and I didn't see them come back.
that could happen too. You're like, oh, that
I know that
came
there was
back?
a few. There was a book called, I think it was Mike Manley did a book called Monster Man.
All right.
That I enjoyed. I think that was the name of it. Something to that effect. But I can't even remember what it was about it that I liked. Like, I'm trying to remember what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm almost sure it was Mike Manley who did it. But he did a few books like that too, where he would do these odd characters for a short while, and then jump on something else. Because I think he also did The Wretch. I don't know if it was him though.
The Wrench. That reminds me of that cover of Omega on the Unknown by John Romita that I love so much. The Wrench.
Yeah, I can't think of another one.
Like I said, I know I've seen that, and I can't think of one.
Or like Scud, Disposable Assassin, I think might have been one of them. Like, I remember when that came out, and I enjoyed it. I even had an action figure to it. But I don't know how many issues it ran, and I don't even remember who did it.
That was one I always meant to pick up, but never did. I think it was around for a little while, wasn't it?
There was an omnibus a few years ago. Collected everything, and I think it still also had an unpublished story. I'm not sure.
Ah, okay. I mean, it wasn't around for ages, but I remember it being around, I think, for just a little while. To be continued. Whenever.
There was another one which was popular back then that I've heard of, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Yes. I think that was the one. There was only one issue of it. I think that was the one. The one con I did back in '97 for the book my friends and I were putting out. I think that was the guy. I can't remember. There was like these people across the way from us, the Three-Legged Black Cat Society. This cartoonist, his girlfriend, and a couple other people. And I think he was the guy who put out Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. And he put out one issue of it. It was pretty hot. A lot of like publishers wanted him to put out more. And he just didn't want to do any more Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Was that Yonan Vasquez?
I have no idea what his name is.
Yeah.
That could be. Because then I think he went on to create Invader Zim.
And maybe a different guy I'm thinking of, though. But the title was something like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Well, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac went on for a while.
Yeah, then it wasn't that one. It's something I can't remember what it was. I'll have to look. I think I might have his name written on a photo somewhere, so I'll have to look him up. I still remember the name of the Three-Legged Black Cat Society. Another name I had never heard of before the first issue of this, Tim Lane. New comics by Tim Lane. This is Mythologies and Apocrypha #2, which somebody on here mentioned last week, asked me if I was getting it. And I was like, I think I am. I think I put it on my pull list. Let me show you the art in this one. And this was one, if you remember, was in black and white and had, that's Steve McQueen's father, by the way. And Steve McQueen is one of the characters in the story, along with Frank Sinatra in this one. And it's like some of it, like here's 2 pages of pranks Steve McQueen and Frank Sinatra were allegedly playing on each other in some 1950s movie they did. I said allegedly, I say allegedly because I have no idea if any of this is true. Here's Frank Sinatra on with Johnny Carson. Here's a random strips in the back. Little Stevie, Hero of Tomorrow. So I guess it's just a collection of stuff that Tim Lane does. Very enjoyable. I have no idea. Like right here is all of a sudden it goes to color. And it's a strip about this little kid in bed talking to his grandparents. And that goes on. They talk about Frank Sinatra and the stuff on the TV. That goes on for 4 pages. And then it wraps up with a phooey.
Oh, phooey.
So I guess it's just kind of whatever comics Tim Lane comes up with. But very enjoyable. $6 from Fantagraphics. But you expect Fantagraphics comics to be a little more expensive. Good. Oh, and this good cardstock cover.
You said Cardstock. You said Stark.
Cardstock.
You said Cardstock.
You said Cardstock.
You said it.
Here's the weirdest wraparound cover I've seen in a while. Because he continues the background, but not the guy on the horse.
That's wild.
So it's like, oh, not the dust from the horse either. That's just strange. I went, oh, look, wraparound cover. Then I went, huh?
That just means the cowboy didn't get there yet.
Yeah.
He still has to go through the whole comic book. You got to the end before he did.
That could be it. And in the front, we have all these fake ads for your amusement. Foxhole Spade, folds flat. Lil Stevie, Hero of Tomorrow, $1.49. Also includes rare footage from The Tonight Show. That's what we had in there. But I enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed the first one. Sleepy's here. Good evening, Sleepy.
Hello.
Did you pick up the first issue of this, Sleepy? The second issue just came out. New comics by Tim Lane, who I never heard of before the first issue, but the second issue was good. I liked it. Did you make it to the comic shop this week, Chris, since you got that Savage Dragon book, or did you get that one a while ago?
No, I got that today.
You got that today? Ooh.
Yeah.
Did you get anything else with it?
Some Transformers, Void Rivals, G.I. Joe.
Sleepy got that one too. The
Saga.
The new Saga.
Yeah.
Are you buying both G.I. Joe series?
No, I'm just getting the Energon one. I never read the original Larry Hama stuff, so.
Okay. Now, which Energon cover did you pick?
Just whatever they put in my box.
Because I noticed this week, because I think it came out 2 Wednesdays ago. And I didn't notice till this Wednesday on one of the G.I. Joe covers, they had a mask stapled in. Who's the villain of G.I. Joe?
Cobra
Destro?
Commander.
Cobra
Cobra
Commander
Commander.
wears a mask. Destro wears a mask.
It was one of them, and they had like half of the mask covered half of the cover by the spine, and the other half of the mask was on the back cover. And it was die cut. So it was like you could move the mask.
Was it a metal face or was it
I don't know. I have a
a
vague memory
shielded
of it.
face?
It was shield. You definitely shield. I have a vague memory of it being purple.
If it was a shielded face, that's Cobra Commander.
I think
If it was
Cobra.
a bald-headed guy, that's
Yeah,
Destro.
there was no face.
Okay, so then that was Cobra. Most
Yeah, I think it
likely
was
that was
Cobra
Cobra
Commander.
Commander.
Sleepy Reader. I've seen Tim Lane's work in graphics anthology called Now from in Fantagraphics anthology called Now. I think I have a couple issues of that from years ago. Somehow that Tim Lane just reminded me that Tim Sale is dead.
Mm.
Funny how you can forget that someone died recently. Then you go, oh, that's right. Tim Sale is not with us anymore. I can't read any new Tim Sale artwork.
There's nobody died this week.
Nobody died. Well, nobody in comics, at least, that we know.
Yeah.
We've got a memorial-free show. Except for the people, who died years ago, who we might want to memorialize for a moment. So who is doing that new G.I. Joe book?
I don't know.
Is Kirkman writing it or somebody else?
Someone else is writing it.
Okay. I almost bought it last week, but unless Paulo is a vampire. Let's see. Another comic I got this week is Ice Cream Man presents Horror House. And I don't know how I feel about this one. Might be a little too real. Because Ice Cream Man is always experimenting with stuff. This is issue 42 by Martine Morazzo is the artist. W. Maxwell Prince is the writer. Chris O'Halloran colors. Good old Neon is the letterer. And there's a trigger warning at the beginning. This issue contains images and references and subjects that could upset some readers. These subjects include school shootings, abortion rights, climate change, and a slew of other social ills. And the sort of conceit of this issue is Ice Cream Man is a horror book, but really, what is a horror book? So it starts to contemplate what a horror book really is. And then we get a classic horror setup of this new family moving into a new house that their deceased aunt left them. So, this spooky old house.
That's every horror book, every Scooby-Doo,
Right,
a few
right.
episodes of the Monkees.
Right. It's very self-aware of all that stuff and what is horror. And they were told not to go down into the basement. So, of course, they go down into the basement. And in the basement are three doors that say horror. But the twist is, the reason they gave you this trigger warning, is eventually they get the horror that's waiting for them is real world horror. Like climate change and horrible things happen to them because of real world horror. So it's kind of like, this is the real horror stuff, isn't it? Or are you just reading a horror story? They even use actual New York Times headlines pages. for here's a climate change horror that's happening. So it's one of those that makes you go, did I like that or not? I would keep wondering when Ice Cream Man will run out of steam. Yeah, I don't think it has at all. I just think sometimes one of their little experiments doesn't necessarily hit home for me. And I forgive it. So, and matter of fact, I thought this was the issue I read. I guess it's an upcoming one where they do the whole issue is 1-page horror stories. All right, let's see what they can do with 1 page. Like,
Did you ever get the impression that W. Maxwell Prince has no interest in doing traditional narrative?
Yeah. Yes, I have gotten that feeling. I get the feeling he really wants to do wacky and weird things, whatever he. That's why I said I'm on board with it because that's up my alley. Him, because he keeps trying different things with the narrative and stuff. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, so it's not a question of steam, of running out of steam. It's more like if the readers stop wanting to go along with with the crazy ideas.
I know I will keep going along with it, but I'm the outlier. Will other people want to? Because most people want some payoff. They want some beginning, middle, and end to this. They want to know that they want the Ice Cream Man to be the villain of the story, and they want a beginning, middle, and end to the story, and they want some payoff to all the reading they're doing. But to me, the payoff is the reading I'm doing. But yeah, how long will the audience stick with them? Sounds too obvious. That's what I'm unsure of with this issue. Was it too obvious or not? I think you may have hit the nail on the head. But like I said, I can forgive issues that fall flat because I like the experimentation. I like he's not interested in traditional narrative. But I just worry that other people won't.
Yeah, because I'm not buying Ice Cream Man, but I do have a graphic novel he did before that called A Week in the Library. And even then, he's not doing traditional narrative. It's not like even the theme 1 Week in the Library is a soft connector between whatever ideas he feels like exploring in each specific episode.
Mm-hmm. That just could be the way he writes, Mm-hmm. I'm glad he found an outlet because the art's terrific. Martin Morazzo, his art is so suited for that book. It's just so creepy.
The thing is, I was not super impressed with anything. I did like the concept, right. But yeah, I understand that if people are expecting the usual payout, it's not going to happen. It didn't happen then, and it probably is not. It's very likely is not going to happen in Ice Cream Man, because I think he dropped a couple of Easter eggs that the Ice Cream Man was going somewhere. Like there were supposed to be angels and the
first like 12 issues he did, but then he kind of abandoned that.
Uh-huh.
Sleepy Reader says, I'm just worried he's going to run out of experiments and repeat himself. See, I'm not actually worried about that. I'm worried about you being worried about that.
Yeah.
Because if you start to think he's run out of experiments and repeating himself, you're going to abandon the book. And I think most readers are like you. Like me, I'm just like, I'm along for the ride. No matter, you've got me. I'm not looking to, as I've said before, once a book's on my pull list, it's very hard for it to get off. So I'm in for the long run, even if he does run out of experiments and repeat himself. I still want to see what happens then. But I also know I'm the outlier. And if enough people decide that he's run out of experiments and repeats himself, I don't get my book anymore. So I'm not worried about him running out of ideas. I'm running about fans thinking he's run out of ideas. So I'm like one meta level. My fear is one meta level removed from yours.
I suppose in a way it's a bit like the narrative in Cerebus,
Yeah,
because the character gets reinvented every story arc,
right.
and here it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of saying, okay, so this story we're going to do this, and next story we're going to do that.
And some stories, like the car crash 2 issues, Ice Cream Man wasn't even in. And now, like the story that just took place in Cuba, the Ice Cream Man was a background character. So he becomes a background character to the to the story itself, to the narrative, to whatever they want to tell. So, like I said, I'm okay with that, but I know most fans aren't gonna be. So that's what worries me. I want to keep reading Ice Cream Man.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what's going to happen for Ice Cream Man number 100?
Oh.
Probably nothing.
I mean, let's read 50 first. Let's read 50. But 42 is a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
42 that's plenty. That's not a lot of things reach 42 issues.
Especially for an odd image title.
Yeah.
That doesn't really have a central theme.
Right. It's
everything about Ice Cream Man should stack against it.
Right.
But people like it.
Somehow they've gotten. I wonder how much it's selling. I mean, I'm sure that maybe the trades are supporting it too. I imagine, but it's not like I see anyone on YouTube besides Sleepy and I reading it. But I hardly see, like a lot of the people I follow on YouTube have like fallen off. So, and I still haven't found a lot of new people who read current comics.
Yeah.
A lot of people read old comic, buy old stuff, but not new. I'll have to dig around some more, but I haven't had time. I still, you know what it is? A lot of true crime stuff took the place of my comic watching YouTube, and now I'm so tired of true crime. I'm gonna have to find some comic stuff again. And another one that's been around for quite a few issues now, 27 of the Department of Truth, where we get the inevitable conclusion of our Marilyn Monroe story. This is the one also with 2 artists on it. Oh no, just one. Allison Sampson took over for this issue. She was splitting time with Martin Simmons on last issue, and she was drawing the Marilyn Monroe parts, and he was drawing the rest of it. So I guess since this one is mostly Marilyn, she drew it all, Allison Sampson. Because there's a lot of, let me show you a little of the artwork in this that's pretty interesting. A lot of Marilyn drawings that are kind of party-like and distorted through booze, but really nice looking. This one should have had some more illustrative Marilyn Monroe drawings on the covers. Get that secondary Marilyn Monroe market, who liked that Dave Stevens Crossfire cover. But as I've discussed before, Department of Truth, the basic conceit of it, the basic plot, is that if enough people believe something, it becomes true and rewrites history to become true. So this story takes place in the 60s, and the Department of Truth right now, today in 2024, is led by Lee Harvey Oswald. So this goes back to the 60s. First, we had a Kennedy assassination story that kind of explained how Lee Harvey Oswald got to be in charge. And then we switched to this one where the lead character in this one is someone we haven't seen before, and he's the guy they send out to kill monsters. So if enough people believe in Bigfoot, Bigfoot becomes real. So he's got to now go and kill Bigfoot. If enough people believe in the Mothman becomes real, and he has to go out and kill the Mothman because they're trying to stop that stuff. They're trying to stop reality from fracturing. Well, so he gets sent out because there's something going on with Marilyn Monroe. And so he gets sent, the boss just sends him, and who was it? Frank Capra, the movie director, is the head of the Department of Truth in the early 60s. So he sends this guy out to look after Marilyn Monroe for a few days. And it turns out that this guy figures out that the reason that the boss sent him to check out Marilyn Monroe is because Marilyn Monroe is fictional. Enough people started believing in this sex symbol that she became real somehow. And he's just like, I can't kill. She's not a monster. I can't kill her. And she's having trouble too with her memory because so many people, after she sang Happy Birthday, believed she was having an affair with JFK, which she wasn't. She starts having memories of having an affair with JFK, and it's messing her up. She's not feeling real. Her memories keep changing because people keep believing different things about her. So whoever Norma Jean used to be, she's not now. So it ends up, he decides he wants to go and tell her what's going on. And because he can't bring himself to kill her. He's not going to kill this woman just because he's a monster hunter. But of course, the inevitable end is Marilyn's suicide. So that's how the story ends, with her overdosing. And she actually left him a note. She was also dreaming that, or seeing that space aliens wanted to come down and take her to the stars. And she kept seeing, we don't quite know who she is, this woman with the red X's over her eyes. She's like sort of the recurring villain in the Department of Truth. But we don't really know if she's a villain. We don't really know who she was. She tries to keep reality on the right path, we think. So sometimes she's opposed to the Department of Truth. Sometimes she's not. But she was showing up in Marilyn's mirror. And eventually she leaves a note that says, Huck, don't be sad. I'm going to see the stars. But of course he takes the note, so no one ever knows of her OD. Like in our real world, no one knows if her OD was accidental or not. But really good story. Nice stuff with this guy figuring out Marilyn Monroe is the monster he has to kill, and he doesn't want to do it. Barbarian Kung Fu says, shoot, it's hard to find folks that read comics at all. Yeah, it's all about resale value to the majority. Yeah, it sure is. I keep finding people who like my Facebook feed is flooded with, you might like this, you might like this, various comic book groups. And almost all of them are, here are the new keys I got. I'm new to the hobby. Here are the keys I got. Here are the keys from 10 years ago when I got out of the hobby. And I'm just like, it ain't a hobby for me. It's a pastime. It's my form of entertainment. And it's like, no one says like watching TV is a hobby. Right. Reading is, it's an activity. I don't know it's not a, but to people who go around and buy key books, it is a hobby. Yeah, that's it too. Slab cases for your slabs. That was the ad I recently saw. I think I commented on it. That's right. Tid Coughlin messaged it to me. There is somebody who's selling slab cases for your slabs. So it's a plastic that you can hang up to keep your slabs in. And it's like, What?
You want to keep your slabs minty and not have any
Yeah.
scratches on them?
Right. I already hate those bags that the people put their slabs in. And I'm like, you really, it's like a comic book bag for your slab. I'm like, that's what the slab does. That's kind of crazy. Has anybody ever read any Department of Truth? Have you guys even seen that book out on the wild?
Well, I bought 3 trades.
Okay.
I think they're all the one. No, I think there's a 4th one out already, but I didn't have the chance to pick it up yet.
Okay. You got 3 trades and you haven't read them?
I've read the trades. I've read the trades. It's the 4th one that I haven't picked up.
Okay. And I noticed they're just putting out the Bigfoot notebook one in an actual notebook, which was probably, I don't know if you got to that one yet. It's probably my least favorite of the Department of Truth.
Yeah, it took me a while to read that.
Yeah. Because it's not a comic, really.
Yeah, that was the problem. And especially because it's not, if it had been normal text,
oh yeah,
it would have been much easier.
It was handwriting, right? It was
script. The script's terrible. There's the occasional spelling mistake done on purpose to show that the character was not that. Yeah, that took a while, and I was almost, and I'm going to skip this, but I didn't.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, sometimes people get way too clever with these lettering, and they want to add so much to it, and it's like, if you make it so hard to read,
right?
You start to distract from the narrative, and it's like it's just too much.
And I'm okay with something like that when it's not in my comic. Like if they were to sell that separately, which they're doing now, as sort of a notebook, like they've done it for a few shows. I know they did it for Supernatural, where in the Supernatural show, the father had this notebook where he wrote down all the lore and stuff. They actually put that out as a physical book. Something like that is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the idea of it, but I would rather, and maybe I'll even get the book version of it if I'm curious enough. But in my monthly comic, I kind of want my monthly comic. Let's see. Affinity, says first rule of typography is legibility.
But it's not meant to be typography. It is meant to be a handwritten letter. The thing, it wasn't lettered. I'm pretty sure the artist had to do that thing.
Mm-hmm. But for me, the first rule of typography of legibility. But what I always tell my students, this is my little legibility lecture. When I'm teaching them how to make logos and such, is that everybody exists on a scale. One side of the scale is it has to be legible. The other side of the scale is I care more about it being cool than legible. Neither one is right. But we all exist somewhere on that scale, and I'm on the first rule of typography is legibility side. That's the side I'm on. But it's like, I was telling them, but I'm not going to foist my taste upon you. But if the boss wants it legible, you better make it legible. Because that's the boss's taste that you're going to have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So if the boss's taste is the first rule of typography is legibility, you better make it legible. And obviously for that one, they wanted it to look cool before they wanted to make it look legible. So that's what they were going for. Here we go. Illegible logos are indefensively bad. Here's the defense for them, which I never thought of until one of my fellow teachers told it to me. Because I'm with you. I'm on the legibility side 100%, zero exceptions. I'm with you 100%. So, but the best defense I heard for them, and there was one bad idea logo. I can't remember what it was now. That was illegible. It was just like, what is this logo? And I was showing this to one of my fellow teachers, and she, who also is on the side of legibility. And here is where she swayed me to seeing the point of view of the illegibility side sometimes. In that she said, but there's also the side that if you can read it, you're in the club. Meaning illegibility is exclusivity. I can almost get the word. Hopefully Chris won't make fun of me too much for missing it. That's a throwback to our bullpen days anyway. But so it's kind of like you make a lot of heavy metal band logos are like that. They don't want everybody to be able to read their logo. You have to be in the metal club to be able to read their logo. So I never thought of that until she said, I was like, okay, that makes sense to me at least. Because I'm 100% on the legible logo side. How about you, Wilson?
I'm also 100% on the legible logo side.
Yeah.
The I dislike the concept of if it saying something like, "Oh, you're not in the club, you don't get it. It's not for you." And it's like there've been plenty of times where I've asked the question, "What does this mean?" And then I would get it. Oh, if you're not part of it, you're not going to get it.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, I don't like that. I find that it's like, can you explain it or do you not know?
Oh, it's that phrase that tries to be so clever. If you're not smart enough to get it, I'm not going to bother explaining it to you.
Yeah, so to me it's like, then you can't explain it. If you can't explain it, then you don't know it either.
Yeah.
I have to say, I 100% understand that, but it doesn't really bother me. It just makes me snobby because it makes me go, okay, I don't want to be in your club.
Yeah, there's that. There's like,
it makes me go, you know what? Thanks for keeping me out of your club because
Yeah.
I don't want to be in it if people like you are in it.
Mm-hmm.
So like some people might feel like, oh man, that makes me feel like an outsider. I'm like, thanks. Thanks for keeping me on the outside.
People don't know how to be practical about those things. Your logo is your brand. Your brand
Right.
must be easy to spot. That's it. Now, and when they try to be smart when they're telling a story, you're a storyteller. You are the oldest form of communication that exists.
Yeah.
You have a duty to transmit information to people with your story. If you're not transmitting information, it's noise. So you fail at transmitting the story.
Yeah, so for me, logos, I want them to be clear. I want you to be able to read them. I want you to be able to read them across the room when they're all stacked up with all the other comics. I want you to be able to read it. I want when it's as small as a stamp in an issue of previews. I want you to be able to figure out and read it. Don't throw it out the door like a lot of those Comixologies covers were.
No go logo, says Sleepy Reader. Yeah, but like I always have students who like it. They're like, I just want it to be cool. I'm like, all right. Like I'm not foisting my taste on you, but just remember, if the boss says he wants it readable, better be readable. What about you, Chris?
Readability is king.
Yep.
Clarity, legibility.
We're not young hipsters.
If you want people to understand what you're putting in front of them, you gotta be clarity.
Yeah, that's why heavy metal bands are the perfect example. As Dave Sharp said to me once, heavy metal fans don't want you liking their music. I was like, okay.
Heavy metal fans or heavy metal bands?
Fans.
Bands.
That's why they like the logos you can't, and the bands probably too, because they want you in the club.
That's bullshit. They want to make money, so they want
Oh,
as
yeah,
many
they
people
do.
listening and buying their music as they can.
Oh yeah, they do. But
Yeah.
they have still that a lot of them have figured out what their niche is. The music they like to play isn't going to be played.
What's an example? What's an example of a logo that you can't read? It's in
I have
heavy
no
metal.
idea because they're all heavy metal bands logos I can't read.
But I mean,
I don't know. I've seen plenty of them, but I'm not a heavy metal fan, so I don't know.
I wouldn't know
Look up-
anybody band since like
Just
the
look
80s.
up heavy metal logos or death metal logos, or
Oh yeah.
there's
I don't
plenty
know, the
of them.
heavy metal bands that I listen to, I could read their logos easily.
Yeah. I'm trying
You
to
know,
think.
so
I feel like
but
they
then
all
again,
very readable.
I'm old
They are
school heavy
not the
metal where
same
they
heavy
were
metal
made.
bands that Pond Scum and Dave Sharp were listening to. Trust
Right.
me.
Right.
Ask Xena Zarfin that question. She'll tell you.
Right.
Sleepy Reader, half of heavy metal logos are unreadable. Yeah.
And
Okay, so there's this website, called Pearls of Man, and it's got a blog post saying unveiling the secrets, a guide to heavy metal band logos.
Sepultura had a tough logo at first.
Yeah.
Barbarian Kung Fu.
Yeah, there's line 3 are the ones that I don't get it. I can't read them anymore. Although I think they're making stuff up by the end here. These aren't real logos.
I swear you'd think they're making stuff up, but they're not. You're like, oh, that is a real band logo. And let's see another comic I got this week. And here's a weird one in that Null Hunter #2, an Olympus saga. And this is the one that's a retelling of the stories of Hercules. I guess that's a Hercules kill. I don't know. I don't remember offhand what is it? The 12 labors of Hercules are?
12 labors of Hercules. That looks like the not the Leviathan. What's the other one? The Hydra, because that looked like it had multiple heads.
That must be it, because it's some sort of, and this is the cyberpunk retelling.
Oh.
So he keeps killing these guys who have avatars in this issue. And it's by Michael Walsh, the artist, is writing this one. And Vargas, not the famous pinup guy, but Gustavo Vargas is the art. Becca Carey doing the letters and design. The flatter is Laura Dragon. So cover A, this is Michael Walsh's cover. And I enjoyed the second issue, which is good because, I've told the story before here many times on how I order my comics. I get an email from my comic shop on final order cutoff, and I can, put any comic I want. I can order the single issue, or I'll put this whole series on my pull list. And with this one, I ordered the single issue of #1. Wasn't sure if I wanted to put it on my pull list yet, so I ordered the single issue of #2. And usually what happens is an issue comes out, and then either that week or the next week is final order cutoff. Except the final order cutoff for issue 3 was last week. So I'm like, and I got the email at the same time I get the email for the final order cutoff. I get the email of what's going to be in the comic, what's on my pull list that they're going to have for me this week. So I'm like, ooh, do I order issue #3? Because I haven't read issue #2 yet. So I ended up ordering issue #3, which is good because I liked issue #2. I'll continue with the story. But I don't know the 12 labors of Hercules well enough to see the parallels with this story. but he's fighting cyberpunk people, and this time he finds a little 10-year-old kid who's made a slave, who I don't know, might be a sidekick now. I can't tell. He followed him home, so I think he's hanging out on the spaceship with him. So it's good issue 2. We'll read issue 3. Is anybody familiar with the 12 labors of Hercules here? Or we
I
just
can
know
name a
it's
few.
Yeah. I thought I could name a few. Now I don't remember. Something to do with a lion.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few. It's been years since I thought about it. I know the Hydra is definitely one of them.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there are
he
times
shined
when
his shield.
there are times when Hercules is portrayed as being dressed in a lion's pelt,
Right.
with the head and mane on his head, and after he kills the Nemean lion, because the Nemean lion is killing people or livestock. I can't remember, but he had to kill the. He basically what Hercules was sentenced to community service. For killing his family in a fit of rage.
Whoops. I never liked Greek myths for some reason.
Yeah, everybody's an
them,
asshole.
And I find them, yeah. And they're kind of dry in all their murder and killing.
Yeah.
Like Bunch, our friend, it loves Greek myths. He knows them all and read them all a million times. I'm like, what? Don't know that one.
Like Ulysses is in the Odyssey is a bit of an idiot as well.
Yeah.
And even going back to the Theseus and the Minotaur. Well, Theseus is not so much of an idiot because he manages to figure out a way to kill the Minotaur and to escape the labyrinth. Icarus is an idiot.
He flew too close to the sun.
You know what? That one always bothered me. The whole lesson of don't fly close to the sun bothers me. It's one of those things like, that's the lesson? Person learned how to fly? You're going to fly high. You're going to fly fast. Don't fly. Well, you should have made the wings better. I don't know exactly what it is. Someone mentioned why it was, and I wish I wrote it down. But there was just something that bothered me about that.
Because the wings were held on by wax.
Yes. And I get it, because they were escaping the tower, and his dad told them, hey, don't fly too close to the sun. And, with all the other Greek stuff, you got to learn a lesson. Humorous, and you got to learn that, the Greek gods are human, or they have the same faults. Right. And I think the main lesson in there is that, hey, even the Greek gods are assholes. So if you're an asshole, you're an asshole.
Let's see another one that's ending. Turns out this is issue 5 of 6. Is Paranoid Gardens, which is the living house that these retired and sick superheroes and aliens are in. And the house is dying because the guy who runs it is trying to make a deal with these evil people to be immortal. And it's the Chris Weston art that's terrific. It's just good stuff. And his attention to like the detail of the architecture and the backgrounds and this woman was strapped down to a hospital bed, and there's like even a rug under the hospital bed. And it's like no one else would do that. No artist in the right mind. And the crumbling bricks. Look at that room is just beautiful. it's like he's even like, the attention to the detail on the blinds and the stuff above his head and the windows just really, really creates a terrific, all this sort of castle architecture in here. That's beautifully done. I just really enjoy looking at this art. But there's only one more issue of it. Oh, by the way, I actually did I did order the collected edition from my comic shop of Matt Kint's Gilt Frame. I don't know if you remember, but must be 3 months ago now, or 4, when this first was coming out, because I usually buy all of Matt Kint's stuff. But they were Dark Horse was putting out Gilt Frame, 3 issues, square bound, like $9 an issue. And, I prefer my comics saddle stitched, i.e. with the staples in them, because they open up all the way. And I said to myself, $30 for 3 issues? I'm like, $30, 3 issues, in a format I don't like. I'm like, I'm gonna wait for the collected edition. So I looked to see when the collected edition was coming out. It was at Amazon for January, which meant it was probably going to be in the comic shops a couple weeks early. And the collected edition, the hardcover collected edition, was $30. Like the same price. Plus, I'll get a little discount like I get in the comics. The same price as the 3. I was like, there is no reason for Gilt Frame to be a periodical. It was clearly meant to be a collected edition, to be a graphic novel from the beginning. But I just happened to read a review of the 3rd issue. The guy raved about it. So I was like, all right, I'll get because often when I get collected editions, I put them on my Amazon list, and I either wait, somebody gets it for me for Christmas or my birthday or whatever. But I'm like, you know what? I'll order this one from my comic shop. So I ordered the Gilt Frame, which there's an ad for in here, from my comic shop. And I just wasn't getting the individual. That was when I just went, no, I'm not spending $30 on a format I don't like.
Right.
Because that may be $10 an issue to you, but that's $30 for me. Paulo doesn't have these decisions to make. He gets all the collected editions over there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm smart.
He's the asshole. We know.
I learned it from the Greek myths.
Zeus never paid for individual issue, not once.
That's right.
He said, "Give me them all." Yes, Sleepy says, I had the same thought process with Gilt Frame. Yeah.
Guilt is for people who pay too much for their comics.
Guilt
is for people who want to buy keys. And slabs for the slabs.
Not for us. Key issue collector. If you put in key issue collector into YouTube, how many channels do you think you could subscribe to?
Hey, probably 3 of them are named Key Issue Collector.
You know what? They probably are. Or the Key Hunter. I bet you did something like that.
Oh, yeah. Which app is it that they tell you with all the like CLZ or something?
Something like that, yeah.
You can find all the keys. So my favorite is now.
So you can keep track of your collection and condition.
Don, the comic book junkie, who has way too many comics, keeps buying more. He's always like, but he buys cheap comics. He's not a. I'm sure he has plenty of keys in his collection, but he likes to go to the flea market and buy books for 25 cents. So he's always got stuff, but he also had, I think it's the CLZ app he uses to keep track of what he has and doesn't have. And he's always my favorite new term is he always says, oh, and this one CLZ says is a minor key, and a minor key is just like any book that has a first appearance of like anyone or anything that even if no one cares about it. Like, first appearance of Mary Jane's handbag in this issue. Like everything's a minor key. It's amazing.
Wow.
Because in order to be a key book, it has to be worth something. But a minor key can be worthless. And there's a lot of them. 62 Lefty Blue says some people see this is a major key and this is a minor key. Cracks me up every time. No such thing as. Sleepy. There's an app called Key Collector. CLC, I think, works with them now. Ah, okay. Oh, and what was that one I heard a few months ago? A forever key. That was a new term. I guess that was, like something like Hulk 180, because so many key issues, because of movies, weren't key issues anymore. So everybody ran after them because they were key issues. Then they ceased to be that.
Give me an example.
Any of the stuff, especially from villains who appeared in the movies, not the big villains, but some of the more minor ones, that when it was announced that they were appearing in movies, everybody went after them and they became key issues. But then the movie happened and no one cared about them, so they became minor key issues. I can't think of a character right off the top of my head. Let's see. Who were the villains in the Marvel movies besides Thanos?
Claw.
Whiplash. There we go. Claw.
Yeah, Claw. That's a good one.
The first appearance of Claw shot up, and first appearance of Whiplash shot up in price way back when. Guys like that.
Bone Crusher.
Where do we stand with Kang? Isn't like?
Yeah, I don't think the first appearance of Kang. Well, it's an early issue of the Avengers, so it's gonna be worth something no matter what. But it might not be worth as much as it once was. Sleepy Reader says, "I love when a third appearance is now a key." Oh yeah, I've seen that too.
Oh yeah, the
Barbarian.
Black Costume Spider-Man. It's like that whole month of all the issues he appeared in becomes.
Oh, I like
if you
how
can't get the first one, get the next one. You can't get that one, get to this one.
now people have obscured which one is the first one.
Uh-huh.
Because the first one, as all of us who were there know, the first one was Amazing Spider-Man.
Right.
But a lot of people now are like, oh no, this was really the first one. And I've heard people say the Marvel Team Up one, or what was the third one?
So you have
Spectacular?
Spectacular Spider-Man.
Some people want to say one of the other two were the real first one.
First one for what?
No. Those of us who were there know that the Amazing Spider-Man came out first, and then the other two the same month.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the first appearance of the black costume, and
It wasn't in Secret Wars.
It doesn't appear in Secret Wars until issue 8.
Right.
But
and that's another thing. People think that one was the first appearance of the black costume, but that came out like 6 months later.
That's what I thought.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that came out later because of the fact that in the story, in the comic book, they went to Secret Wars and they came back in the next issue. So only 1 month went by. But the Secret Wars series launched that same time period, but you don't get that black costume until issue 8. And if you want to get technical, then you have the Marvel Age appearance when they talk about he's getting the black costume. Or is it
some people like to say that too.
yeah,
Right?
or is it the first when you see Spider Woman because she has the costume technically first in issue I don't know 4 or 5 or something like that. So it's like, but she had that color costume scheme. So you have all those types of
Yeah.
things where it's like now at this point you're just nitpicking. And
Barbarian Kung Fu, the Secret Wars is the origin, right? Secret Wars is the in continuity first appearance of the black costume, but it's not first appearance of the black costume in comics, in the
right.
real world.
And I don't know. I'm almost sure that Amazing Spider-Man was published first, then
It was.
Team Up,
I bought
then then Team Up, and then Peter Parker, or it could
Yeah.
have been the same. I don't think they all came out the same week. They came out the same
No.
month.
Yeah, the
but
same. The first one was the Amazing. It was the only one out that week, and everybody bought it. Everybody I
Yes.
know bought it. Barbarian Kung Fu says, my biggest pet peeve about comic pricing these days is folks basing value on how a movie was received. I think that has ended just because there have been so many movies now that I think people got tired of gambling on movie characters driving the price up. And I think people noticed that villains first appearances did not go up like heroes. So I used to see videos all the time of people chasing the just announced movie characters, where a movie character would be rumored to be announced and everybody would go and flip the books immediately. I haven't seen that in a couple of years. People pay a lot for that Secret Wars issue, LOL. Yeah, Sleepy Reader, right? They do. That was really, let's see, if it was 6 months later, that was like the 19th appearance of Spider-Man's black costume. But people like the cover.
Yeah, it's a good cover. It's a great Mike Zeck cover.
People like the cover and think it's the first appearance. So.
Well, some people.
Wolverine's first appearance is in Hulk number 180.
But once again, I will explain to people out there that first appearance is a shortening of the phrase, I want to read the first story he appeared in. Because that's what people used to do back in the days. When there were no collected editions, that's what we used to say. You used to want to read the first story somebody appeared in, which is why Hulk 180 wasn't worth any money. It's because that wasn't the story. That ended the last story. It's only over time that I want to read the first story he appeared in became first appearance and now means something different.
I want to own the first appearance, not even read the story.
Yeah, you wanted to read the first story he appeared in. That's what you wanted, because if you were a comic book fan back then, that's why you bought the comics, because you wanted to read the stories. And if somebody became popular, you wanted to read the stories about how he got here. But like I said, it got shortened the first appearance. People buying and selling got more interested in, that now they could argue over, But that's why Hulk 180 wasn't valuable for 20 years. Until, like I said, first appearance meant something. And now people can go, you don't have 180, huh? That's his real first appearance.
Or when they do the 2099 AD preview in Marvel Age is the first appearance of Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah. What issue of Foom is the real first appearance of the new X-Men? When they had the preview in there.
At this point, are we counting ads?
Yeah.
That's the first appearance.
Yeah. Well, some people buy those books with the ad for Hulk 181 in it. Thor, I don't know what issue was, 257 or something like that was the first ad with the Hulk 181 appearance of Wolverine and the cover in it. As for keys that aren't keys anymore, there are a lot of Kang keys that ain't shit anymore. Barbarian comic books. Yeah. By the way, I just noticed that the actor who played Kang got all the charges and lawsuit dropped against him today. The woman who had the lawsuit against him settled everything and he's free and clear of all that stuff. 62 Lefty Blues, yeah, says the first appearance of the new team of X-Men was in Foom. Sleepy says most keys in first appearances are fans conning themselves. Yeah, well, it's people trying to sell fans things, fans trying to sell each other things, fans want to brag about it. Yeah, it's convincing.
Yeah,
like I said, first, and as I've always said, well, not always, collectors need something to collect. That's what a lot of this is driven. Collectors need something to collect. And they want things that not everybody has and that aren't easy to collect. Because I collect, technically I collect comics, but all I do is go to the comic shop every week and pick up new comics. So there's no challenge to my collecting comics, except, most. It actually might be one of the rarer forms of collecting comics now that I think of it, because not a lot of people make it to the comic shop every week. But still, there's no challenge to it. People who collect things often want some kind of challenge, often want something that other people don't have. So that's what they do. They go out and get hard to find stuff. They invent stuff to make it more desirable.
I'm going to collect every appearance of Deborah Whitman. Nobody cares about Deborah Whitman.
What was fascinating? I'm sorry.
Which is the least interesting Peter Parker girlfriend? Deborah Whitman or Marcy Kane?
I do not know any Peter Parker girlfriends besides the big ones. If they showed up after like 1983, I don't know them.
Okay, so before he got hot and heavy with the Black Cat, they were toying with the. I'm not even sure how serious they were. I mean, I don't think Mary Jane wasn't being used a lot in the stories at the time, but they were trying to do a trio of potential girlfriends, and none of them were anything to go by. Deborah Whitman and Marcy Kane were both colleagues of Peter's in ESU, and April May was a photographer at the Daily Globe or something.
I have a vague memory of her. April May photographer.
Yeah, that was about 1980 or so, 1980 to 1982. But then the Black Cat. But then the Black Cat was a success, and they thought, okay, let's give Spider-Man an even hotter girlfriend that is way out of Peter Parker's league.
Let's see. Sleepy Reader says the challenge is knowing which new books are worth the money. Yeah, challenge isn't collecting them. The challenge is figuring out which new books you want to buy, because despite all the people who say new comics suck, there's a lot of good comics out there. But if you want to find them, you gotta search the haystack for the needle.
I always found interesting, and it came to my attention when I was working at Marvel, was a push by collectors to try to create collectibles out of books that weren't really listed as what they wanted to be listed. And what I mean by that is there was a push to make the title prototype heroes or characters.
Oh yes, that's right.
Prototype to Doctor Doom was this character because that guy
Right.
wore a mask as well. The prototype to Aunt May and Uncle Ben was in this amazing fantasy book.
Because Steve Ditko drew similar old people.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So they had, I think they were the parents to like a mermaid
Yeah.
woman or something. I don't remember the exact story, but they was trying to push for a while. And again, me not knowing any of that going on, I had pitched the idea. Oh, why not make a trade paperback that said prototypes? And it's like, no, we do that, then it legitimizes this
Yeah.
section that wants that to be true. And it's
And
like, I thought it would be just a fun trade paperback to put together. It's like, are these
But-
prototypes or are these just like, there's only so many ideas and there's only so
Yeah.
many ways Steve Ditko could draw an old man and an old woman. Because
Yeah, I
as
mean,
an artist, it's like, I'll reuse these designs because, it
Yeah,
worked
and
first
the
time.
prototype to the Stone Man from Saturn was called Thor with 2 R's.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But the Professor X prototype in Amazing Adult Fantasy number 14 was not Professor X prototype. For the simple reason that Professor X was created by Jack Kirby and that story was drawn by Steve Ditko.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mutant story.
Yeah.
Sleepy says Dr. Droom and the Challenges of the Unknown. Well, the Challenges of the Unknown were pretty well known.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't consider
And
them prototypes. And the way that
Fantastic
they
Four
were
prototype.
trying to push this. Yeah.
Yeah. But Doctor, who was the? There was like a Doctor Strange prototype too, wasn't there? Aren't there supposedly 2 Spider-Man prototypes? There's not 2. I don't know if there's 2 Spider-Man prototypes, but what it was when Spider-Man was being created. And we think when Stan Lee's story being bullshit, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon created a Spider-Man character for another company that didn't I think become anything. And
Steel
then
Spider.
What was that?
Steel Spider. It was
Steel
it was
Spider.
going around through the 50s. CC Beck dropped out. Kirby took over the design elements. Then when he split from Joe Simon, he shopped it
Right.
around. The Fly uses those ideas.
Joe Simon used those ideas for the Fly in Archie, right?
Archie.
An Archie comic. So those ideas that were Jack Kirby and Joe Simons for Steel Spider became the Fly. And then Jack Kirby presented Marvel with a bunch of ideas, and one of them was this Spider-Man who Stan Lee then went and gave to Steve Ditko. And Steve Ditko went, don't you think this seems a little similar to The Fly at Archie Comics? And so then he and Stan Lee reworked it to be the Spider-Man we know. So it wasn't like they were comic books. Well, I guess there were 2 prototypes to Spider-Man. They just weren't not the same type of prototypes where isn't Droom the Doctor Strange prototype? He may be. Then there was a Doctor Doom prototype too.
It was a monster with Doom's mask.
Okay.
Doctor Doom was created by Kirby.
Okay.
Although Ditko did ink it. Still, I suppose there were a few of those ideas running around, thinking about the notion of mystics now being a little more esoteric than the typical Mandrake type.
Dr. Droom.
But Droom doesn't do the same things that Doctor Strange is supposed to do.
Yeah.
They kind of pitted him as being still of a monster hunter. Because
And
they had the monster stories, but there were the characters that did not show up in new stories, and Droom did.
And the one character who had an actual prototype was Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Because and his the man in the ant hill wasn't a superhero story about Ant-Man.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. It was incredible shrinking man, basically.
Yeah. But was he Henry Pym in that first story?
Yes.
Okay. I thought so, but I haven't seen it in so long. I couldn't swear to it. Someday we might see Wilson's idea, but not today. Matter of fact, I just noticed the latest Marvel monthly omnibus is some month in 1965. I forget which one now. They just announced it. Let me see. Let me see if I can go to Marvel Omnibus 1965, I think it was. Why isn't it guy giving it to me? May 1965. There we go. April 29th, 2025. And it's got Strange Tales 135, X-Men 12, Journey into Mystery 118, Tales to Astonish 70, Patsy and Hetty 101, Rawhide Kid 47, FF 41, Amazing Spider-Man 27, Avengers 18, Tales of Suspense 68, Sergeant Fury 20, Daredevil number 9, Modeling with Millie 40, Patsy Walker 122, Kid Called Outlaw 124, Two Gun Kid 77, and Millie the Model 130.
Yeah, people can't wait to read Millie the Model 130.
Yeah.
And Kid Called Outlaw 124.
The 60th anniversary of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's Shield. Okay, that's what it's celebrating.
Right.
I find those omnibuses interesting curiosities, but I don't want to pay money for one of them. Especially not $100.
Right.
If they were $15, maybe. But not 100, that's for sure. Because I think they have 3 or 4 of them now.
Only 4?
That's weird that Chris is dropping out and coming back without him ever doing anything. That's the second time it happened to him.
He's tuning on.
He drops out and I have to put him back on stage.
They're out to get me.
Are you tuning in, turning on, and dropping out?
Yep.
He's a follower of Timothy Leary, so of course. Up, and I've been doing my my 5x7 superhero cartoon art cards the last couple of days. Just making some fun masked characters say goofy things. I got the superhero stuff down. Want to see me lift a car? Where's yours? Maybe you want to see my face. Maybe you want to see what my face looks like. Maybe you don't. Either way, you must beat me in battle first.
No, thanks. I'm good.
They call me the Muffled Mask. It's a dumb joke. I hate the name, but nobody cares what I think.
Or it could be his Mexican wrestler persona.
Yeah. That's why I've just been having fun making a couple of them. And I also discovered I've been drawing in Procreate I've been doing the pencil drawings in Procreate and then printing them out on this paper and inking them right over the blue line. But and I've tried it out before, but I've never found a use for it until now. Drawing, faces like this in Procreate is so easy with the mirror function on. And other programs have it, I know, like Illustrator does and Clip Art Studio does too. But all it is you draw one side of the face and it just mirrors it on the other side. And it's just so fast. If you're just drawing silly faces, it's much faster than trying to keep everything even. Matter of fact, I tried using a couple of my Gatsby drawings as sort of guide where I drew the characters' faces, and I couldn't. My freehand drawn faces weren't even enough for it. I couldn't get it. Like I just like blue lined one of my faces, brought it into Procreate, and was drawing on one side, but it wasn't. But the face I drew was a quarter, an eighth of an inch off, as freehand drawings are when you're not drawing things perfectly symmetrical. So I had to take my original freehand drawing and cut it in half and flop half of it and make a perfectly symmetrical drawing to begin with to use as a guide. I was like, But it could probably help with your art cards too, Wilson. I don't know how much you've drawn in Procreate.
I haven't used Procreate at all. And for the cards I'm doing, I've been like, because I'm doing the Transformers stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're just close-up headshots. Once it's approved by Hasbro, I just got to draw like 200 of these same headshots.
Okay.
So I don't know if Procreate would help me with that.
It would help you only if you were drawing symmetrical headshots. I'm not that you couldn't draw that, because you draw that and then use graphite paper to bring it over, right?
Right.
What you would do is you would draw it in Procreate, print it out, and then use the graphite paper to draw transfer it over. Or what you could also do is do it in Procreate, set up 9 of them in Photoshop, and print it out on a 9x12 piece of Bristol. And you got 12 of them on one page. You do all 12, and you just cut them apart.
Right.
That's how I do them.
Yeah, if I was doing my own cards, these are pre-printed with their own, with the proper information on the back.
Gotcha.
That I get from them. So that's how these are done.
Do they have anything on the front?
No, on the front is completely blank.
You could probably run those right through a printer. You'd have to see. I don't know if I've run, because I run 5x7 through, but I'm not sure if I've run 2.5x3.5 through. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, that's the thing. I thought about it. I even thought about, well, what if I was to put them on, tape each one of them down on paper, and then run it through. But by the time I match up the paper to get it right, and hopefully not destroy any of the cards going through, it was like, I just will graphite it and just call it a day that way. But I thought about it. I thought about, are there ways to, if there was maybe if I had a small printer that would only print on that size, and I'm sure somewhere it exists. Maybe the printers that does the receipts, but that's a special kind of paper. That's that's more of a heat treatment on the paper itself.
Right.
So, it's like, just doing it by hand is the quickest way that I could figure out at this point. But I thought about it.
AI, draw like Jared Osborne for me. I have at least half draws like Jared Osborne. Like I said, I've run. I don't have one of the programs I have on my iPad. I probably showed you some of the stuff last year. because like a subscription, and I subscribed for a year just to try it out, was Photoleap, where like I run my drawings through and it turns them into manga drawings. And it's just crazy good at it. It gives me cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
It's like crazy good at it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so depressing. But like the AI is especially good at manga and AI and manga and anime because there's so much of it, and most of it is formulaic, so it's easy for AI to figure out the formula.
AI can do Milo Manara pretty good. It's not good at doing Jack Kirby.
No. Jack Kirby had no formula. He had some tropes, but that's not a formula. That's not you draw this eye this way every time in this situation.
And AI does Joe Jesco and Alex Ross the same way.
Yeah.
Maybe the Joe Jesco characters are a little bit more beefed up, but the poses are kind of the same. Because it's trying to do Frazetta, but does it like Joe Jesco.
Mm-hmm. Goblin says, I do everything analog because I consider doing all digital stuff work. The second I sit next to the computer, it's work. The tools I use for art don't give me that feeling even when they're slower. Yeah. Besides the fact that I teach all the digital stuff, I like to keep up with even like the drawing stuff. And I don't draw too much digitally, but I like to know about it at least because my students are using it. So sometimes, I gotta pay attention to it. But someone was just telling me, I forget who it was, that what was that Gun Honey book I got last week? Hold on, let me show you. I think I put it right over here. There we go. Heat Seeker. If you remember this one. Somebody at my LCS was telling me this artist was getting in a little hot water because people thought his work was AI. He's like, no, I just paint that way. I draw that way. Because AI is really good at stuff like this. Because it's a formula in terms of how the paint is laid down from dark to light and how you make the shapes. So AI is really good at copying something like this. Which, which is annoying because now people will think his work is AI.
Right.
And what I mean by formula is just if you want your art to look a certain way, usually like rounded from dark to light, there are steps you follow to get to that. Like they're somebody like Picasso doing Guernica, where there's no formula to making a Guernica. You could copy the tropes or but he wasn't working like Picasso wasn't aiming for something to look realistic. When you aim for something to look realistic, there are steps to follow to make something look realistic. When you're not aiming for realism, it's harder to copy because there's no formula for doing that usually. So AI can't do that as well. Like you said, AI does Joe Jusko and Alex Ross the same because it's figuring out the formula that's the same between them, but that's not really what they do.
Right.
they each have their specific style within using that formula. As opposed to that guy right there who I showed you, who didn't have a specific style. He was just kind of had an Adam Hughes-ish style and was going for round and dark to light.
But I don't think that the AI is very good at mimicking the most famous comic book artists, because the most famous comic book artists are not famous artists.
Right. There's not enough work of theirs a lot of time. And they don't always draw. And a lot of comic book artists have to knock stuff out.
Artists?
Where, what was that?
Yes, he said
Well,
artist.
A lot
I
of
was
comic
letting
book
it go.
artists.
Artist?
Artist.
That's what you said.
Comic book artists
That's what you said.
have to, and when I'm talking knock stuff out too, I mean like the backgrounds and stuff, where they're not Chris Weston paying attention to every little detail in the background. They're just putting some brush strokes in and making it look like a background. So as opposed to like the reason there's so many anime and manga, it copies that so well, is that there's so much of it. And often it's done by like a whole groups of people following the same style, following the same formula. So that's easier for the AI to figure out than to figure out John Buscema's style.
Yeah, it can't do Neil Adams either.
No. Because it can't really figure out the point of the drawing.
Do you think
It can
people in
mimic
Japan
what the-
think people in Japan look at the AI manga stuff and they go, "Oh man, they're light years away. They're not even close."
I don't know. I don't think so, though. Because they're close. I mean, I'm not saying they can replace them now, but AI can do a book cover in that style I just showed you, and you'd like it. I just saw someone posted it because it comes up in my Facebook feed, a whole series of Angelina Jolie as Tomb Raider paintings. And they were all perfect. They all looked good. I mean, I'm not telling you they were great works of art, but they were good enough to be on a book cover. So it's kind of disturbing. Sleepy Reader says, I heard a Microsoft exec say everything on the internet is fair use for AI training. Yeah. So everything we've all been posting for more than 20 years are theirs to use. Yeah. That's what they say. They don't care. They don't think they're doing anything wrong.
Well, they know what they're doing wrong. They just don't care.
Oh, I think some don't even think they're doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I can see that.
Some don't
But-
think they're doing
like-
anything wrong. Some don't care. Some don't
Yeah.
care that you think they're doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
There's all levels of them not caring, and either way they're doing it. Any way you cut it. That's why the one AI I have that I still use on occasion is DeviantArt AI, which is supposedly ethical in that you have to opt in order to use it, and it's also not particularly good. You have to do a lot of cropping in order to get. But I don't know if I showed you these. These are pinup cards I did with the DeviantArt AI. And they're pretty good. I mean, they're well done. I don't know whose work it is.
That's pornography, sir.
Of course
Sir?
it is.
No.
You want me to show you?
I'm in Europe. It's high art.
Yeah, we'll show Chris some with clothes on, so he doesn't get upset.
It's still too suggestive, sir.
Listen, if you tape all of those to a wall, Do you think you can get $6 million for them?
No.
No, it has to be a banana.
But I think these are good enough to be on a book cover or something dumb. Now, I had to. I mean, it disturbs me. It's like I don't even like showing these because I feel dirty. But I like to try the stuff out so I know. But and I like I said, deviant art isn't particularly good in. Actually, no, this one wasn't even deep. The nude ones were some random one I found. The clothed ones were deviant art because deviant art won't do nudity. And there wasn't a particularly good one. Like I had to crop out all the hands and stuff like that. But real ones you pay for can do stuff like that now. But it's like I just want to throw these away. I don't even know who. Oh, what did I put? I named them Art from the Machine.
There's an open source version of Dolly that I use to make stuff up, and it's pretty good. It's just they're limited to 1024 pixels wide.
Oh yeah,
The thing is, it doesn't have continuity, which is the problem. So
Yeah.
it starts from the beginning.
But it doesn't matter if you're limited to that because a gigapixel can upscale them all, especially AI art, especially art like that. These are all upscale because I used some random site that allowed nudity because I wanted to do pinups.
I used to save some of the stuff I did, but then I noticed I'm not using this again. I'm just making stuff up. So I deleted everything. Every once in a while I go there. Let's make up some more stuff.
Yeah,
just to see what
that's
it
kind
does.
of. I just felt like making cards one night, and I was like, I want to do something. I always think my work doesn't have enough sex appeal in it because my work tends to be more intellectual and artsy and out there. So I'm always like, I should get some more sex appeal in my work. And occasionally I'll do pinup stuff or whatever. But I didn't want to do all the work. I was like, it was just like a passing whim I knew. So I was like, well, let me try using AI to do that and make some cards. So that's what I did. And they came out fine. I made them while watching football one Sunday night and printed them out. And I'm like, now what do I do with them? It's not like I can do anything with them. It's not like I even want to show them to anyone because it's not really mine.
Yeah.
Even though they only exist because I brought them into existence, they certainly don't feel like mine. So it's kind of crazy. It gives me cognitive dissonance. But I made a whole stack of them. I did all these.
It's a bit like you're playing Minesweeper.
Yeah,
that's what
that's
it feels
kind of
like.
what it is. Yeah, it's like that's not making art. Me playing, but I made this whole stack, all 54 of them during one football game. I printed them out the next day and made them, but the actual drawings I made. All these were done during one football game just by typing. It's crazy. Yeah. Well, we should wrap it up for the week and say good evening.
That's right.
Okay, I'm rubbing my face now because it gives me cognitive dissonance. They're supposed to be terrible, but they're not.
But they're not.
That's what gives me a headache. AI is supposed to be terrible, but it's not. Not good. Not good. All right. Any last words? Nope.
Paper and pencils the way. Paper and pencils the way to go.
Viva Zapata.
There you go. Real art.
We'll keep making those buggy whips because the horses aren't going to go out of style. No way.
That's
no one
right.
will ever be able to go faster than a horse. Have a good night out there.
Bye-bye.
We'll catch you all
Take
next
care.
time.
Have a good one.